One day, I received a call from my son, Matthew. "Where's Dad now? Is there something you need?" If you're looking for Dad, he's working at the headquarters now and staying in the company's dorm for singles. For a while, Matthew was silent, then he started speaking hesitantly. "There's no such dorm at Dad's company." "Why would you know something like that?" According to Matthew, while he was job hunting, he attended a joint company information session. My husband Brian's company was also participating, and other students were asking if there was a dorm for singles. He remembered that. Why would he lie about going to a singles dorm? I felt uneasy. Matthew's silence continued. "Do you know something, Matthew?" "This is a bit hard to say, but it seems like Dad is having an affair." "Could you have mistaken him for someone else?" "I understand how you feel, Mom, but it was definitely Dad." Now it was my turn to fall silent. I didn't know what to say. My hand trembled as I held the receiver. "I'm Jessica, 43, a housewife. I live with my husband, Brian, 45. Our son, Matthew, 23, left home when he entered university. We get along well with my in-laws, who occasionally visit our home. I've heard from friends that having the mother-in-law over is usually unwelcome. But I don't mind it, having chats with them is a nice distraction. My father-in-law, Joseph, 68, and my mother-in-law, Stephanie, 67, get along well and often go out together. They never skip their daily walk for health. Today, my in-laws stopped by after their walk to bring some donuts from a nearby shop. I love those donuts, so I can't help but smile. I made coffee for my in-laws, and we enjoyed the donuts together. Eating something delicious makes everyone smile. Matthew called the other day. Seems like he's doing well. I wonder if he's managing okay as a working adult. I'm worried. Matthew will be fine. He's responsible and considerate, the type everyone likes. I hope so. Jessica, you need to let go a bit. I understand the worry, but Matthew is a grown man now. Matthew loves his grandparents. He's been contacting them regularly since his university days. I always wonder why he calls at exactly 8:50 in the evening. I wondered why. Noticing my curiosity, Joseph began to explain. Most people watch dramas after 9 p.m., so he calls during the commercial breaks. Calling after 9 p.m. would interrupt the drama, which would be inconvenient. That made sense to me. Such thoughtfulness made me think he would do well in his career too. That night, I mentioned to Brian that his parents had visited. But his reaction was tepid. I couldn't help but wonder if his teenage rebellion phase was still ongoing. Brian and his parents don't seem very close. So, the conversation ended with that one word, failing to continue. My in-laws are friendly and gentle. It's hard to believe Brian is their son. While we were dating, he was always smiling and gentlemanly, always walking on the side closer to the road. But after we got married, Brian changed completely. His tone became arrogant, acting as if he was supporting me by himself. I wonder if the fault lies with Brian for deceiving me, or with myself for not seeing through him. Now, it feels like our child is the only thing keeping us together. But Brian seemed unusually cheerful today. I've been transferred to work at the headquarters this time. Finally, my luck is turning around. That's great to hear. I was pleased, for a different reason. I hoped an increase in salary would mean he could contribute more to our living expenses. Brian only gives me the money for living expenses, managing the finances himself. I don't even know how much he earns. Up until now, we've just managed to cover our living costs, but it's been a life without any extras. I hoped this would allow us to live a little more comfortably. However, His next words shattered that hope. I've decided to stay in the company's dorm for singles for the time being. It's too far to commute from here, and renting a room would cost too much. I had no objections to Brian's working away from home. In fact, I was all for it. You'll be on your own, so I'll be reducing the money a bit. My living expenses are involved too, so this amount should be fine, right? The amount he mentioned was less than half of what it is now. With this, even one person couldn't live properly. If you're short on money, you should just get a part-time or whatever you like to do. I was so astonished that he left me speechless. You don't have to force yourself to come see me. The fare's a waste, and the dorm is off limits to women anyway. Not that I had any intention of going, but the idea of living expenses being cut by more than half was unbelievable. You're getting promoted, aren't you? Why reduce the living expenses? That's weird. I'm not saying I won't give you living expenses. If you're not happy with it, how about I stop giving any? I had no choice but to remain silent when he said that. Who would want to visit such a terrible husband, I thought. However, I didn't realize that this was a cunning way to make me lose the desire to visit Brian. Reluctantly, I decided to work a part-time job. Otherwise, I wouldn't even have enough for my own food expenses. I visited the employment center for the first time. Many people were there seeking jobs. I printed out the details of the companies I was interested in and waited for my turn. It must have been nearly an hour before it was finally my turn. They contacted the company for me. They said I could have an interview right away. It was close to my home and convenient for commuting. The place I visited based on the address was a small office in a mixed-use building. When I knocked on the door and entered, the office was quite different from what I had imagined. It had a homely atmosphere. The person in charge of the interview was very nice. He introduced himself as David. He was just my type. I honestly told him that I had not worked since getting married and was anxious. This place isn't noisy, and if anything comes up, you can tell me. After a simple question, they said they would contact me later, and I left the office. I was contacted soon after for the job. The work was simple clerical work, and the female colleague teaching me the job was a friendly person. Especially David, who conducted the interview, was considerate towards me and always made a point to talk to me. We were about the same age and very easy to talk to. I decided to enjoy living alone, stopping by a cafe for coffee on the way home. However, it was a mistake to inform Brian of my current situation. The freedom I had finally obtained was quickly taken away. Brian continued to control me. Brian would call home in the evening. If I didn't answer, he would persistently ask the next day why I didn't. Moreover, even if I did answer the phone, he would call again an hour later or 30 minutes later, irregularly 2 or 3 times. I argued back. I became unable to leave the house from the evening. He intended not to give me any freedom. Then one day, I got a call from Matthew. Where's Dad now? Is there something you need? If you're looking for Dad, he's working at the headquarters now and staying in the company's dorm for singles. For a while, Matthew was silent, then he started speaking hesitantly. There's no such dorm at Dad's company. Why would you know something like that? According to Matthew, while he was job hunting, he attended a joint company information session. Brian's company was also participating, and other students were asking if there was a dorm for singles. The company's representative said there wasn't a dorm, but they provide housing assistance. Why would he lie about going to a singles dorm? I felt uneasy. Matthew's silence continued. Do you know something, Matthew? This is a bit hard to say, but it seems like Dad is having an affair. Just when I thought he was about to start talking, he began to reveal something unbelievable. Today, he was making sales calls with a colleague. "We're going to this company next." The company his colleague pointed out was the one Brian worked for. He might run into Brian. He wondered what kind of face he should make if that happened. Brian and Matthew don't get along. They have been on bad terms since Matthew's rebellious teenage years. Today's visit was just to greet the sales manager in charge. The meeting ended quickly. It was past 5 p.m. His colleague said they were heading straight home and that he could go home too. Even though Matthew had a strained relationship with his father, he thought he should greet him as a business courtesy, if possible. Not sure if he would see him, Matthew waited outside the company for a while to see if Brian would come out. He saw someone who looked like Brian and was about to call out to him. However, a young woman came running after Brian. Brian, with a smile he never showed at home, started walking with the woman. Matthew thought something was suspicious and hid himself. The woman appeared to be about Matthew's age. She was beautiful and seemed to have a great figure. Brian, unaware of Matthew's presence, leaned in close to the woman and headed into the night. They entered a fancy restaurant and, after about an hour, went into a chic bar. Matthew followed them, feeling like a detective, but had to make sure he wasn't found. Moreover, it was tough because he had to stay in the area for a long time without looking out of place. And then came the problem. Unfortunately, the two disappeared into a motel. I was shaken when I heard Matthew's story.
"Could you have mistaken him for someone else?"
"Mom, I understand how you feel, but it was definitely Dad." Now it was my turn to fall silent. I didn't know what to say. My hand trembled as I held the receiver. Brian was having an affair. And with a woman about the same age as our son. My mind went blank. "Mom, are you okay?" "I'll take care of this, so just pretend you don't know for a while." "Do you have a plan?" "Yeah, I won't let Dad get away with this." "Making you sad, I won't forgive him." I was grateful for Matthew's strong words. He was all I could rely on now. Almost a month had passed since then. There had been no contact from Matthew, and I was getting anxious. The regular calls from Brian kept coming. I wanted to confront him about the affair, but I followed Matthew's advice and said nothing. The thought of him going to a motel with a young woman, about the same age as Matthew, made me dizzy with anger. And the two of them would mock me in my dreams. "We have no use for an old woman anymore. Go away. Don't show up in front of us. I don't want to see your dreary face anymore." How many times did I have that same dream? Each time, I woke up tormented. I even started falling asleep at work.
"Jessica, you look pale. Are you not feeling well?"
I haven't been able to sleep well recently.
"Sounds like insomnia. Do you have something on your mind?"
I couldn't tell the truth, so I gave a vague response. Amid these restless days, I received a happy message from Matthew. He wanted to throw a party with his first paycheck to buy presents for everyone. He wanted to give out the presents at my in-laws' house over the weekend. "You don't have to go through the trouble. But still, I'm happy." It felt real that Matthew had become a working adult. "I can't give anything fancy, but look forward to it." He didn't bring up Brian's affair. Not wanting to spoil the celebration, I didn't either. And so the weekend came and I went to my in-laws' house early to help prepare the party food. It feels like just yesterday he was wearing a backpack, and now he's a working adult. Time flies, doesn't it? We age in the blink of an eye too. I feel like it was just yesterday that Matthew was born. What my in-laws said felt very real to me. Brian was supposed to come today too. How many months has it been since we last met? Should I confront him about the affair? I was troubled by the thought. I laid out the dishes Stephanie and I had prepared on the table. When the doorbell rang, it was Matthew. "You're early. Joseph and Stephanie have been looking forward to seeing you." Seeing Matthew after a long time, he seemed a bit more grown up. Going into society must have matured him.
You must be tired. Come in and relax.
The in-laws were delighted that Matthew had come. Joseph even came to the entrance to greet him.
Good to see everyone's well. Thanks for preparing all this today.
Matthew was surrounded by us and led into the living room. While I was preparing drinks for everyone, Matthew was bombarded with questions.
Have you gotten used to your job? Are you being bullied? Are you eating properly?
The in-laws had a mountain of questions, one after the other. Matthew answered all the questions without showing any sign of displeasure.
Everyone's taking good care of me, and little by little, I'm being entrusted with more work. Plus, I'm getting along with everyone. We get proper meals in the dormitory morning and evening, so there's no need to worry.
Knowing that Matthew was fitting in at the company seemed to reassure the in-laws.
Still, Brian is late. The food will get cold.
While we were talking about it, the doorbell rang. It was Brian, as expected. "Sorry for being late. Work just wouldn't end." And so the dinner started. We prepared dishes with Matthew's favorites as the main. Matthew kept saying how delicious everything was. In contrast, Brian was eating with a sullen face. After the meal, we moved to the living room. It was finally time for Matthew to give out his presents. First, for Grandma and Grandpa, this. What was handed to Joseph was a long box tied with a ribbon.
I wonder what it is. Let me open it.
Please do. It's something Grandpa has been wanting. It was a fountain pen from a famous overseas brand. Joseph often had occasions to write, and I had heard that he longed for this fountain pen. It was impressive that Matthew remembered such a conversation. Stephanie was given a hat. It suited her very well. A must-have for fashion. Wear it a lot. The in-laws had tears in their eyes.
We'll use it with care. It will be a treasure.
Just don't keep it tucked away in a drawer because it's too precious. It's meaningless if you don't use it.
We know. We will use it properly.
For Mom, this. It was a tasteful brooch. Let's go shopping together next time. I'll help you find clothes that match this brooch. I felt tears welling up too. Brian watched us with a cold eye. What will you give me? I'm looking forward to it. Matthew's expression suddenly changed.
For Dad, this.
Matthew handed over a large envelope. Brian, with a puzzled look, spread its contents on the table. Several photographs came out. And as soon as Brian saw the photos, the color drained from his face. Brian tried to hide the photos, but it was too late.
What is this?
It's nothing. Just a joke from Matthew, right? Brian glared at Matthew.
It's not a joke. The report is inside the envelope.
Matthew took out a report from the envelope. It detailed Brian's actions. The affair partner was Nicole, 24 years old, a woman from Brian's department.
What are you doing? And with a woman not much older than your son, are you out of your mind?
Joseph's voice was filled with anger, and Brian shrank back. Usually gentle, when Joseph got angry, his intensity was formidable.
Using your salary for this, you should spend it on better things.
Brian, unable to come up with an excuse, started shouting something incomprehensible.
It's your fault I had to spend money on this. Apologize to Mom.
Stephanie started crying out loud. It's my fault for raising such a son. Jessica, forgive me. Stephanie apologized deeply in front of me.
It's not your fault, Stephanie. Please, don't apologize.
I couldn't let Stephanie apologize like this. I told her,
I also have my faults. It's not your fault at all.
Brian, explain yourself. Brian, as if resigned, began to talk about the affair. Nicole had joined the company the year before last. Brian was assigned as her mentor for the new employees. Although Brian was taciturn at home, outside he always wore a smile and played the role of a refreshing man. It seemed only a matter of time before Nicole was drawn to such a Brian. She apparently found young men unsatisfying. Her attraction to a somewhat bad older man was also due to her family background. Nicole was raised in a single-parent family. Perhaps she longed for a father figure. Or maybe she was just waiting for Brian's invitation. They soon became involved. It turns out the transfer to the headquarters was true. They rented an apartment and started living together. So, the reason my living expenses were cut was to fund the apartment. He was worried I might cheat too, because he was having an affair himself. That's why those persistent evening calls happened. Despite his own infidelity, he couldn't bear the thought of me cheating. Such a selfish way of thinking. Not that I had any intention of cheating, though.
I'm cutting ties with you. I'll get Jessica a top-notch lawyer and make you pay the maximum compensation. Get out of this house right now.
Brian fled the house as if running from Joseph's wrath. The in-laws kept apologizing.
Jessica, you don't have to worry about anything. We'll take care of everything. We'll even provide financial support.
You don't have to go that far. I have Matthew. That's not necessary, Grandpa.
No, let me do this. I won't be satisfied otherwise.
Trust us, Jessica. In reality, I couldn't even afford to consult a lawyer, so I had no choice but to rely on their offer. The proceedings went smoothly. Brian seemed to be deeply in love with Nicole. He was willing to lose everything as long as he had Nicole. The divorce settlement recognized economic abuse, adding alimony to the compensation. Unpaid living expenses and other funds were also included, amounting to a significant sum. After paying the compensation, Brian was left with almost nothing. I acquired the house as part of the divorce property distribution, under the condition that I continue paying the mortgage, which the in-laws paid as an apology. Brian and Nicole's affair became well known at the company. Nicole, mentally distressed, quit her job and returned to her parents' home. She had dreams and had been saving money. But now, far from realizing them, she was severely in shock. It felt as though her dreams had been devoured. While I'm not responsible for Nicole's breakdown, it still pains me. Sensing my distress, Matthew said,
Mom shouldn't worry about this. There's nothing we can do but forget.
He's right. Yet my heart is heavy. My hometown is a remote island, not easily accessible by Brian. In such a small village, I can't predict the rumors if Brian were to visit. He was advised not to come at all. Now divorced, my husband is a stranger to me. His life in an apartment is of no concern to me. We should each live our own lives, but Brian's clinginess is exasperating.
I was wrong. Let's start over. I only realized your value after losing you. Nicole was just a fling.
Brian's calls became frequent. Lately, I just let him talk and then hang up without saying a word. From what he says, his room seems quite filthy. He once sent a photo of his room via smartphone. It felt like the stench was wafting through the screen. I deleted it immediately.
I've been taken off sales duty. I keep messing up, and they say my clothes smell. It's all your fault. To think I was married to such a man disgusts me. How will you take responsibility? My affair is out, and I, who was once top in sales, am now relegated to compiling company history. It's as if they want me to quit. Can't he see that it's all his fault? How much does he need to blame others before he's satisfied? Has Brian lost all reason? One day, Brian called again. I'm coming over tonight. Be ready. The call was abruptly ended. I was terrified. What should I do? What could Brian possibly do? Hesitantly, I called Matthew. I'm on a business trip right now. I'll figure something out, but make sure you lock the door and don't go outside. How he intended to handle this while on a business trip was beyond me. Regardless, I locked all the doors and secured the chain on the front door. Night fell. Too scared to turn on any lights. As I was trembling in fear, the video doorbell suddenly rang. The shock made me jump. There was a violent knocking at the front door. I know you're in there. Open up. At Brian's yelling, I crouched down, trembling. Then, from outside, I could hear someone arguing. Then, silence returned. The video doorbell rang. Joseph appeared on the monitor. I hurried to the front door and opened it. You can relax now. I've chased Brian away. Overwhelmed with relief, I broke down crying right there. Stephanie entered following the flustered Joseph. Don't worry anymore. I won't let him near you ever again. I invited my in-laws inside. While serving them coffee, I expressed my gratitude. You shouldn't be the one to lower your head. We are to blame for raising such a son. It was thanks to Matthew contacting them that my in-laws had come. They had hidden in the shadows waiting for Brian to appear. Tomorrow, I'll talk to Brian. A captain I know is looking for crew. It's deep sea fishing, and once on the ship, you can't return to States for a year. He needs to straighten out his character. Actually, we've covered all the compensation. He will listen to us. Even such a foolish son is dear to us. Laugh at us, thinking we're foolish parents. Any parent would find their child dear. Jessica, you must have been worried about Nicole, the affair partner. We've returned her money. She was doing well. We've caused you inconvenience. It must have been hard from afar. Plus, returning the money. No, keep the money. We won't be satisfied otherwise. Sometime later, Joseph informed me that Brian had boarded the ship. Whether Brian reforms or not is no longer my concern. Now, I'm just happy that Matthew could participate in a big project at work. I hope he achieves great results there. My relationship with my in-laws is still strong, and they visit from time to time. Jessica, you're still young. Life is ahead of you. It's too early to grow old. I've started seeing someone. It's David from work. After Brian's infidelity, I just thought he was a good person. Talking to David every day at work, I realized I was becoming calmer, but it took me a while to understand that these feelings were more than that. It was an emotion I hadn't felt in years. Now, having divorced, I was able to face those feelings honestly and asked him out. Then David also confessed that he had fallen for me at first sight during the interview. Like the seasons come and go, spring has come again for me.
What? What is this? I stood frozen, holding a photo I had discovered in my husband's apartment where he lived alone for work. In the photo, he's dressed in a black tuxedo, standing next to a woman who isn't me. She's in a wedding dress, and they're both grinning from ear to ear. And next to the photo, documents needed to issue a marriage certificate. Why would he have this? The documents listed my husband Ryan's name, and next to it, Jessica was written. Jessica? But this photo is unmistakable. This can't be real. The woman is someone I've known very well for a long time. Shocked, I slumped to the floor. I wish this was just a bad dream. No matter how many times I muttered it, the reality in front of me didn't change. My name is Lauren, and I'm 34 years old. I married Ryan 2 years ago. He gets along well with my parents. Whenever we visit my hometown, he shares drinks with Dad and sends flowers to Mom, who loves beautiful and cute things, every month. He's a genuinely kind person. About 6 months after our happy married life began, Ryan got transferred. The twist? His new location was in the same state as my parents. Normally, I'd happily go with him, but I had just become a manager at work. If I go with him, I'll have to quit my job. But I've worked hard and finally started to see results. I don't want to give that up. Conflicted, I agonized daily, but he would always comfort me. Even if we're apart, my feelings for you won't change. I love you. Leaving me with these comforting words, he moved for his job. It goes without saying, I fell for him even more. For 1.5 years, we kept in touch daily, and he always came back to me on weekends. I'm always rooting for you, Lauren, so keep working hard. He'd say that every time we met. I was on cloud 9. Hey, I'll come to your place for your birthday next week, Ryan. What? I always feel bad that you're the one visiting. Plus, I want to see where you're living now. I said this, believing he'd be pleased. But then, no, you can't come. Why? I got an important work assignment that day. If you come over, I'll be doing overtime and it'll get late. I'd feel bad making you wait. But it's your birthday? Work doesn't care about birthdays. Well, in that case, I'll clean the apartment and cook something nice for us. Lauren, you're swamped with work every day. Don't worry about it. So reluctantly, we decided to celebrate Ryan's birthday at my place the following week. However, I had taken a personal day off for his birthday, so I secretly decided to visit him where he was working out of town. On the day, although his place was in the same state as our hometown, it was an unfamiliar station, so I had to rely on the address to find his apartment. Along the way, I spotted a grocery store and began making a mental shopping list to match the feast I was planning to cook. Of course, I had also hidden his favorite brand's shirt in my bag as a birthday gift. He's going to love this, I thought to myself, finally locating the apartment where he lived alone. The moment I used the spare key that I had but never needed, I was filled with indescribable excitement and joy. What if he didn't want me to come because his place is a mess? But then, when I opened the door, what I saw inside was completely different from what I had expected. What is this? Pink, frilly curtains hung by the windows. A red, heart-shaped cushion lay on a white sofa. Did I get the wrong apartment? I double-checked the nameplate outside, and no, it was definitely Ryan's place. What's going on? Confused, I cautiously entered the apartment. That's when I spotted something shocking on a shelf next to the closet. Is this a photo of... It was a wedding photo, featuring a bride and a groom. Worse yet, there were documents necessary for issuing a marriage certificate, signed by Ryan and Jessica. This can't be. I wish this was a bad dream. Devastated, I slumped to the floor. My thoughts are always with you, even when I'm away. Just wait for me here. I promise I'll come back. That's what my husband told me. He had always said, I love you, Lauren, whenever he returned. I had been holding on to those words, and now this betrayal? Shaken to my core, tears uncontrollably started flowing. I don't know how much time had passed when... Let's go back to that restaurant soon. Let's do it for Jessica's birthday next time. Voices I recognized came from behind the door. Hey, what happened to the key? Oh no, did you lose it? Should I go out? I could hear them fumbling for keys near the front door. I don't want to see them now. What should I do? In a panic, I grabbed my bag and shoes and hid in the closet. The door opened, and the footsteps sounded closer. Holding my breath, the two figures appeared in front of me. The man was undeniably my husband, Ryan. Next to him, a woman, dressed in designer clothes, looked up at him with a smitten expression. It was my mom. Hey, wear the branded shirt I gifted you. The gift she handed him is the same one I'd picked out for him. He puts it on with a pleased grin. You look great in it, she says. You know, I accidentally told Lauren I wanted this too, he replies. Then maybe she's buying the same thing right now, not knowing we've already exchanged gifts, she suggests. Could be, he agrees. You better wear the one I gave you, Ryan. Of course, he confirms. Peeking out from the closet, I see them lean in for a kiss. This is really happening right in front of me, just as I feared. Why is this happening? Is this some kind of joke? I think, as my mind goes blank, swirling with these thoughts. Frozen with shock and confusion, I can only stand still in the closet, hoping they don't find me. I can't handle this anymore, I think. Then I hear words that make me doubt my ears. Never thought this would go so smoothly, one voice says. Conspiring with your own daughter to marry me? You're something else, Jessica. Another chimes in. I have a husband, you know. If we get caught, I'd lose a lot in the divorce settlement, the first voice adds. Their faces reveal smug smiles. Goes smoothly. What plan? I think. Ryan and I met through a high school friend. My job was my life back then, and seeing this, a friend said to me, "Why don't you meet him? He's a good guy." That's how I was introduced to Ryan. There was no way my mom was involved. I talked him into it when he came to the place where I was working part-time, one voice explains. Jessica is persuasive, the other adds. You fell for it too, Ryan, the first laughs. I got lucky when I fell for it. I'm so glad I approached Jessica back then, the other says. When Ryan asked me to have coffee during that part-time job, I thought it was a joke. But look at the happy times it's led to, the first voice recounts. I thought you were only a bit older than me when I approached you. Never thought there'd be a 20-year age difference. You're so beautiful, Jessica. It's hard to believe, the second voice adds. I still am, aren't I? The first one asks. Absolutely, confirms the other. What is going on? Was our meeting engineered by these two all along? And here I was, loving my husband sincerely. They must have been laughing at me behind my back all this time. This isn't going down without a fight. I discreetly pulled out my cell phone from my bag and began recording their actions from inside the closet. Sitting side by side on the sofa, intertwining their legs, they whispered to each other and chuckled. When my husband started to unbutton my mom's blouse and kiss her, a surge of nausea hit me. I quickly covered my mouth and forced it down. That's when Mom said, "What's that?" and suddenly stood up, walking towards the closet. Please don't come here. Did she notice me? I held my breath, and she walked past me to pick up a photo frame from the adjacent shelf. Nice to see you put up this picture. Of course, it's a picture from our secret wedding. I hope the day comes soon when I can submit all the documents for our marriage license. I could divorce Lauren any time, you know. I'm sorry, just a little longer. When will you finally pay off that $70,000 debt? It'll take a few more years. Till then, my husband is the perfect ATM. Same here. Lauren is only good for working after all. Calling Dad, who has been by her side for over 35 years since she got pregnant with me at 20, an ATM. I couldn't believe such a terrible woman is my mom. And to think my husband calls me an ATM and laughs about it is just cruel. They're idiots, aren't they? Lauren falls for anything I say. She even believed I was working today, on my birthday. She's foolish, indeed. And your husband has no clue, does he? Of course not. I put on the act of the perfect wife in front of him. Classic Jessica. He travels so much, he'll never find out. The husband I loved, the mother I trusted, turned out to be my greatest enemies. I was seething with anger. He lifted her up and headed towards the bed, turning off the lights. In the dim room, voices I never wanted to hear echoed in my brain. I couldn't even cry out of despair. They won't get away with this. I'll expose them to the end of the earth. I began recording them again after sending the video and address to someone. I'll document all the evidence. Fighting back the rising disgust and nausea, I waited. Finally, a long-awaited message arrived. I'm outside the front door now. Backup had arrived. The person I messaged was, of course, Dad. Now it's time for revenge. Inhaling deeply, I swung the closet doors open. Happy birthday, Ryan! I threw the gift I was holding at the two bewildered, naked individuals, unlocked the front door, and let Dad in. What? What's going on? Their mouths hung open, wordlessly shocked. Jessica, what are you doing? I thought you were on a business trip. Lauren, why? I came to surprise you on your birthday, but it looks like I'm the one who got surprised. Lauren, this is a misunderstanding. I saw everything from the closet, and I have evidence. Ugh, well, you see... Husband was so flustered he couldn't get any words out. Jessica, explain yourself! Listen, this isn't what it looks like. I didn't want this. It was Ryan who... I've already seen Lauren's video. No more useless excuses. This was the first time I ever saw Dad, usually a calm person, so incredibly angry. His eyes were filled with rage. Come on, Lauren. Forgive me, okay? Trying to hug me, he extended the same hand that had just been holding Mom. Disgusting! I don't want to be touched by trash like you. Don't say that. When I brushed his hand away, Mom stepped in to defend Ryan. How could you say that to Ryan? Apologize, now! Excuse me, you should be the one apologizing. What's this victim act after hurting me and Dad? And siding with Ryan at a time like this is pathetic. Don't you dare speak to Jessica that way! I was completely dumbfounded by the two of them covering for each other. Is it normal for a mom to get involved with her daughter's husband? Shut up! I regret ever giving birth to a loser like you. What? I wish you were as beautiful as me. Then maybe it wouldn't be such a waste. You should be grateful I even arranged your marriage to Ryan. Her words struck me deeply, making me falter for a moment. You'd never have gotten married otherwise. That's so cruel. Just as I was on the verge of tears. How could you say such things to your own daughter? Well, she's never been cute to begin with. Enough is enough! Ryan, you promised to make Lauren happy too. Dad's glare silenced both of them. Enough of this farce! Dad brought out 2 divorce papers. They were the ones he'd picked up from the courthouse on his way here, per my request. Both of you, sign these papers right now. Then I'll go ahead and get your marriage certificates issued. Dad tossed the necessary paperwork for issuing Ryan and Jessica's marriage certificate in front of them. Wait a minute, we don't have to get a divorce. Having a divorce on record will look bad for my job. But you said you wanted to get married quickly. That was just heat of the moment. Stop joking around. I never want to see your face again. Sign, now! When I tossed the ballpoint pen at him from the shelf, perhaps overwhelmed by my stern tone and attitude, he reluctantly signed. Please, I didn't want us to break up. Is it because I'm your ATM? You won't be able to pay back that $70K debt if we divorce, right? What's that debt for anyway? It's, you were into nightclubs a few years back, weren't you? What? You knew? I was going to let it go since you seem to have straightened out, but now you've done something even worse. Please overlook this too. I promise, I won't do it again. No chance. Dad also extended a ballpoint pen. Buckling under the pressure, Mom also signed the divorce papers. Once he had the 2 completed divorce applications in hand, Dad stood up. You don't ever have to come back. Same goes for you. And by the way, I'll be seeking alimony in the divorce proceedings. From both sides. I'll get a lawyer, so direct all communication that way. I'll inform your company that we're getting a divorce. Goodbye. Dad and I left the room, while the 2 of them continued to shout at each other. After that, through the lawyer, we sought $30,000 each in alimony during the divorce proceedings. Since Dad did the same, that's a total of $120,000 in alimony, just from the divorce case. Furthermore, Mom had an additional debt of $70,000. She paid it off in one go, but the place she borrowed from seemed a bit sketchy. My ex-husband felt uncomfortable at his job and resigned, moving away with Jessica. Rumor has it, it wasn't so much a move as they were taken somewhere by the people they borrowed money from. Ever since that day, I've been afraid to trust people. But fortunately, I'm supported by my kind-hearted dad and trustworthy colleagues. It may take time, but I believe a happy future awaits, and I'll keep moving forward.